Morning. At least it's morning over here in Palo Alto, California. And am I too far away from... Anyway, we'll figure out. Good morning. It's your girl, Aisha, founder and CEO of Bossy Cosmetics. And we are continuing in our week featuring women in business. And yesterday I had a really great call with Kaylee Cavaco-Rec, who is the founder and CEO of Knockout Beauty. And that was fun, talking about the business of retail. And today says, shall I join with this or NS? Either is fine. And today I will be talking about building beloved brands with a really amazing founder. Her name is Ade Hassan, and she is founder and CEO of lingerie company Nubian Skin. So let me put this up on pin. Speaking with Ade Hassan, founder, waving hi, of Nubian Skin. Okay, guys. So let's see if I can pin comment. Perfect. I'm waving. Hello. This is my first time, I think, actually pinning a comment for anybody who joins to see what I'm talking about. But if you have been following us this whole week, you will see that we are featuring women in business. And, I've always talked about the fact that we, while we do sell beauty products, our main goal is to empower ambitious working women in the world and, really share beyond our products, content and services. And so this week we relaunched a product that we call Beauty Meets Wisdom, where we feature, and sent a video to request. Let's see, requests. See if we can get her on. I love this. I get so tickled just before the person shows up.
Hello.
I love it. Good morning. I love your hair. I can't wait to
I was just going to tell you that you look so fab. I love the color. I love everything.
I love the fullness of yours. That's beautiful.
Thank you. I'm looking. It's a bit lopsided right now.
It's fantastic. Listen, with
out.
natural hair, it kind of does what it wants to do. So you can never quite predict, the way it's going to show up. But good morning and good afternoon. You are dialing in from where?
From London. So it is good evening here at 7 p.m.
Oh, that's right. It's evening. So it's 11 o'clock in the morning, my time, and it's evening your time. And I was saying just before you joined that this whole week I had been doing IG lives and posts on women in business. Yes. And our focus this week has been what we call Beauty Meets Wisdom, where we do a bunch of different things. But one of the main products on Beauty Meets Wisdom is we have this coaching service where we offer a free hour of coaching with any number of coaches on our platform around business, public relations, leveling up in your career, a host of different options. And so that's a really important part of what we do beyond just selling beauty products. We also want to partner with our ambitious working female customers in their own career journey. And so yesterday we spoke with Kaylee Cavaco-Rec, who owns a retail store. She sells beauty products in LA, New York, and the Hamptons. And today we are speaking to Ade Hassan, who is the founder of Nubian Skin. So thank you for joining.
Oh, absolutely. It's a pleasure.
And I'll just ask you a couple of questions because I think, this video will stay up on our page and we share a lot of content about the do's, the don'ts, the successes, and the failures, right? Because I think failure is a very important part of a journey. So first of all, start off with what was the need for Nubian Skin? Why did you feel that calling to start that brand?
So I wanted a product which I couldn't find from anywhere. Throughout my whole life growing up, if I ever wanted sort of nude tights or pantyhose, say in the US, that was a struggle. You could sometimes find things, but more often than not, you couldn't. Especially in the UK, it was very difficult. And then with lingerie, it was just impossible. I'd walk into a shop and I'd say, actually I'd quite like to, you know, buy a nude bra, and I'd be given something which was beige, which obviously isn't my color.
Which was not nude for you, right?
No. And so, you know, or being told by shop assistants, well, we've got it in black, and I'm like, well, that's not really nude, is it? So, it was, I wanted to start a business. I didn't know exactly what it was, and then it just sort of clicked that, you know what, this is something I need. This is something nobody else is doing. I can't find it. There's got to be countless other women like me who need this. And so that was sort of the little match, and then it sort of lit the
So
fire.
were you, a lot of people tell me that they have so many different ideas and they perceive so many different needs, but once they zero in on one, they have no idea how to start. So can you share your story from when you realized that there was a gap in the market and you decided that you were best placed to fill it? What did you do from then?
So I actually came up with the concept in 2011, but I didn't actively start working on it like really properly till 2013.
Okay.
One, obviously, when you decide you want to start a retail business, you need capital, and so I needed to save. And at the time, I was working consulting, and I didn't feel like I was paid enough to be able to save what I wanted to do. So I switched back and went back into finance, which was where I started my career, because I knew I'd be able to make more and therefore save more. So that was the first step. And then when I actively started working on it in 2013, that was sort of I received a card from a friend who I told about the idea, and that sort of, when I received that card, I was like, right, I want to start working on this. I really want to start working on this. So that was 2 years after coming up with the idea, and then I spent the next year and a half just sort of developing it, figuring out how in the world do I start a business, because I'm coming from finance. How do I go into retail? How do I go into lingerie? So that was an interesting experience, but that was sort of a year-long process of developing the colors, speaking to an intimate apparel consultant, because I actually had no idea how one starts a lingerie business, going to trade shows, figuring out prototypes, speaking to factories, finding suppliers. So it was, you know, it was sort of a slow and steady burn. And coming from finance, I thought things happened like that. I was like, right, 3 months, I'll have launched. It took a year and a half from actively working on it. So from conception to launch was actually 3 and a bit years.
So I think that's a very interesting point to make, because I think a lot of people believe, you know, when they see that you have launched the product and you're kind of in the process of selling, they think you just started a couple months ago, you put it all together and you kind of hit the market. They don't understand how much work goes behind to just launch, right? And so I want to talk about post-launch, but let's still stay on pre-launch, right? Because I'm in the middle of Silicon Valley, which, you know, there's literally dollars walking on the streets, but I don't
Send
have
them my
access.
way.
But I don't have access to those dollars. And so I'm interested to hear, you know, your perspective in the UK, where you said, you know, you had to go get another job that was higher paying so you could save up. How did you think, did you always know that you wanted to bootstrap your business, or had you thought about looking for third-party capital? Did you not? Why? I'm interested in that journey.
Yeah, of course. So I did not. I knew that I wanted to bootstrap it. I just wanted to feel comfortable, like more comfortable in my skin with launching it. And so I wanted control. I didn't want pressure. And quite frankly, I was also very paranoid about my idea. Obviously, I thought once I came up with it, I was like, actually, this is a great idea. I can't believe nobody's doing this. And what I didn't want was to meet with a bunch of people, tell them this idea, and then all of a sudden it pops up somewhere else, you know, well funded at a cheaper rate. You know, just I was very protective, and so I would sort of mold it in the way I wanted to mold it before I sort of showed it to the world.
Okay. And so then do you have any external capital now, or are you still self-funded?
No, so right now we're still self-funded.
Oh.
Everything sort of we making the business, goes back into the business.
I know.
So yeah, I obviously put in all of my money into the business. My parents and my siblings invested, but that's it.
Fantastic. Okay. So now post-launch, let's talk about launch, right? Because I've kind of followed your journey and, obviously before this call, did some checking up on you online, not in a stalkerish way, in a healthy way. But I mean, obviously, majority of the world is fascinated by Beyonce, right? I mean, I think I would faint and die if Beyonce wore one of my lipsticks. I may not be able to move. So tell me about, because I think, okay, there's the journey of coming up with the idea, which in your case took 3.5 years to just from inception of idea to market and all of the things that go on between that.
Mm-hmm.
Now you launch. How do you get a customer? What's that process like? Because I'm interested to hear from someone who's done it quite successfully. So please walk us through that. And I'm learning as well, by the way.
No, of course. So this is terrible, but I didn't have a full marketing plan, which now in hindsight, I'm like, what was I thinking? How did I think this was going to work? Initially, I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll go to universities. Obviously, I'll need social media. And this was in 2014. So Instagram was a very different landscape than it is now. At that point, Instagram was still very, they weren't doing advertising actually, so it wasn't a money-making venture at that point. And so I put up a couple, I think I had about 50 followers on Instagram actually. And
50, 50?
50. I had 50 followers on Instagram because I'd been posting random, really random things. And I thought, okay, Instagram would be great for, at least telling people the story. And so when we did the first shoot, the website hadn't launched yet. I think we had like a coming soon thing on our website. And we did the shoot and there was this beautiful picture of 4 women. And I put it on Instagram and all of a sudden at the end of a week, I think I looked at my phone because it kept buzzing and I had 100 followers and I was like, that's really interesting. 100 people care. I was so excited.
Double.
I was such a novice. And then at the end of a week, there's 1,000 followers and I was like, this is really interesting. At the end of 4 weeks, there were 20,000 followers. And basically our image had gone viral because people just hadn't seen pictures like that. And so I think it was the perfect storm of a great product, amazing imagery, if I do say so myself, and social media being where it was at that point. And it created this sort of perfect storm where all of a sudden this image went viral, which then meant mainstream media was like, hang on a minute, this thing is trending. Because we were trending on Twitter and we were trending on Instagram. And so obviously then journalists were like, well, this is interesting. So we were getting approached by the Mail Online, the Independent, Teen Vogue, Elle, basically saying, can we speak to your press department? This is amazing.
And you're the press department.
There was no press department. So I created an email address called press@nubianskin.com and sent it. So they were like, can we have images? What's the story behind this? And we didn't have a web page and we didn't have a selling site. We didn't have product at that point. And so I remember my web developer at the time saying, you should probably put an email capture on this because the traffic has gone through the roof. And so that's how we created our first database, was having the email capture saying, if you want more information, please sign up for our newsletter. So that when we did launch in October, because this happened in August, we had a very, very healthy list of, a mailing list that we could go out and say, websites launched, you can now buy.
That's okay. So that's the thing that's really interesting because I feel like you can't recreate zeitgeist, right? Yeah, it's something where it's like luck meets preparation, right? You had this amazing idea that was super timely, that presented itself, and you kind of came upon it and created this thing at the right juncture in time, but it was your work and it just struck a chord.
Exactly.
Right? Wow. So that's amazing. So tell me, how did Beyonce discover you? I want to hear that. I want to hear all about that.
To be honest, I do not know how she did What I do know is our story was I received an email from someone and he said, I'm Beyonce's stylist. I'm working with her on the Formation tour. We'd love to collaborate, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, delete. Because I honestly thought it was somebody I thought somebody was trying to get free product. Honestly and truly, that's just what I thought. I was like, there's literally no way. So I was like, this is ridiculous. And I think about a day later, I was like, I'm just going to forward this to a couple of friends who work in the industry and see if they've heard of this person. And so I send them the emails. They both respond being like, we know him, respond immediately.
Immediately.
And I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? What have I done? What have I done? Thinking I'd like blown this massive opportunity. And so I respond being like, yes, of course, we'd love to work together. You know, tell us what you need. And he literally was just like, yeah, these are the sizes. This is what we want, blah, 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 blah. And I was just, he's like, this is her size and her color. And I was like, how does he know? Like, just absolutely.
I'm tingling just listening to the story.
And then obviously Formation, you know, the tour launched and the press pictures started coming in. And she started posting images on her website. And so we're literally just like looking at everything, scrutinizing, you know, like, and I was like, oh my goodness, because so much of that show, of that concert, she was wearing she and her dancers were lots of see-through things, lace things, cut out things. And so you could see the lingerie. And I was like, wow. Is that our stuff? And I remember emailing him saying, is this what I think it is? And he just wrote back being like 100%. And that was just, it was insane.
So
and her wardrobe mistress
what does
in
that
London
do for a business? What does that do for a business? Does it, you know, I've always wondered, I mean, we've never had a major celeb like that, but does that drive sales? Does it drive awareness? What does it do for you as a business? Because I think that, you know, a lot of press is very different from sales, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a key difference. So I would say that obviously the kudos of that is amazing, just generally. And what it did was obviously we then would release, we did a press release obviously saying that, you know, Nubian Skin, Beyonce. And so that drives press. And more than anything, I would say that drives awareness. I wouldn't necessarily say that drives sales. And so I think a lot of times people think, oh my goodness, you know, so-and-so wore this, they must have, you know, like millions of sales. That's not what happens.
Yeah.
In general, what will happen is people will be talking about you because it's a really cool thing to have happened.
Yeah.
And that will drive awareness. You might get a few followers on Instagram off the back of it, but somebody wearing something and people knowing about it is very, very, very different from a celebrity getting on their platform and saying, I endorse this.
Yeah.
Usually that costs millions and millions and millions.
Exactly.
And so that's the key difference.
Okay.
You know, it's amazing to have had that happen, and it was brilliant for us, and it did bring amazing awareness and amazing press. However, it's very different than if Beyonce herself said, buy Nubian Skin.
Yeah. So that's an interesting point you bring up specifically for small businesses. I think sometime last summer, I interviewed an entrepreneur. Her name is Idunu, and she has a jewelry business. Mm-hmm. And she talked about, when I asked her one of her biggest regrets, which later on in our conversation, I'll ask you the same. She said that she was so preoccupied with trying to get press placements because she thought that they would drive sales. So she spent a lot of money actually advertising in magazines, so buying up ad stuff, putting her product all over the place, which is very costly, but it had no return whatsoever on her investment. And so I just, you know, that was one thing that she said, and I was so happy she said it, because also myself as an owner of a small brand, I'm incredibly judicious around even influencers, you know, because I think that you can end up, especially in the beauty space, you know, wasting a lot of money helping other people grow their profile, but it doesn't actually correlate to sales for you as a brand.
Yeah.
So what would you say Now I'm going to get to this MBE, member of the British Empire, because I think that's another super cool thing. But let's talk a little bit about business. What would you say is your biggest success as a business person and your biggest learning? Because the two may not be the same.
Yeah. Oh goodness. You know what? I would say it's hard to pick what I think would be our biggest success, but what I'd say that right now I'm the happiest with is um, obviously over the past few years we've had like lots of ups and downs, lots of ups and downs, and currently obviously we're in the middle of a global pandemic and economic malaise. And at the end of last year, I made the decision that I really was going to focus on direct to consumer and just really engaging with our audience. And that's a scary thing to do. And it's not necessarily something that will be permanent as far as being direct to consumer only. But I just really wanted to sort of get back to basics and focus on what's our messaging, how are we engaging with our customers. And over the past few months, I'd say actually, especially when the pandemic sort of kicked off, which coincided with having a baby. But anyway, when the pandemic kicked off, that was a moment in which it was scary because you could see that things were going pear-shaped. However, we've really just started focusing on our customers, engaging with our customers, figuring out what they wanted. And I'm probably say one of our biggest successes right now is that our customer engagement is really, really high. And that's an amazing thing as a brand because
Yeah.
you really see the results of that. You see people speaking to you, so you can really mine what is it that they want, and you're offering them something that they want, and also there's that satisfaction in just in really engaging with your customer on a really granular level. And so I would say for me right now, I think that's been the biggest success is
Okay.
that we've just managed to we're engaging with our customer in a way that seems very, very meaningful and is actually having an impact on sales.
Fantastic. That's we've observed that as well, but I'm happy to hear you reinforce that. What's been the biggest lesson?
Oh my goodness, there are so many.
What's been the most
Like I can write a
painful lesson?
book, literally.
How about the most painful lesson? Maybe we'll save somebody else from making the same mistake.
So one of the things I'd say, I'll give two examples. One is um, so I started off in this business, and that it wasn't my background, and I was in the business. I was building it obviously from the ground up. At the beginning, it was just me, and then it was me and one other person, and we sort of slowly build. But I didn't trust in myself a lot, which meant that there were times where a consultant or a third party would be like, I can help you do X, and I would say yes, absolutely, okay, please, and I would spend a lot of money, sort of saying, please take care of this for me, thinking they had sort of like the silver bullet that was going to solve all of my problems, only to be disappointed. And then realizing that actually I've built this business, nobody knows this business like me, nobody knows my customers like me. If I'd only had the faith in myself, I wouldn't have wasted that money because that's a very
Yes.
painful thing to do as a small business. But also I could have got to where I did a little bit faster. And so I would say a lot of times we're seeking, and it can be really good to pay money where it's really, really worth it. But a lot of times I think as a small business, you think that somebody will be the answer to your success or a specific success that you're chasing. And that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes it really is just rolling up your sleeves and getting it done yourself.
And grinding it out. I mean, thank you so much for saying that. I wish we had this conversation a year ago. I mean, I am definitely guilty of exactly what you've said. And I was also, because I had a finance background like you, I was very insecure about my ability to market my company. And so I wasted so much money paying people, to help me handle my social media and to help me do all sorts of really wasteful activities. And I manage all of our social media myself. And when people DM the company, they're DMing me. When people, ping me on Shopify, they're pinging me with questions.
Yeah.
And it's just, you're right, it has really had a very phenomenal impact on sales and really understanding how to tailor your messaging to who your customer actually is, as
Yeah.
opposed to putting somebody in between you and the customer. So that's great. So
Yeah, and
can
then
you
I'd say,
go
sorry.
ahead? Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. There's a bit of a delay. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. And then I would say probably the other big learning that I had was at the beginning, um, and this was a necessary lesson because I didn't have experience in the field, but I just thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to go big. I'm going to produce in China, and so everything was just big, 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 big. And also, I think coming from finance, I was like, okay, well, money, just sort of like throw money at a problem and then solve itself. But now we do everything, we produce everything in Europe. Everything's just much closer to home, and I have a lot more control over it. And I always think if I had done that at the beginning, I would have had a lot more control, and have used resources more wisely, just starting off just that little bit smaller,
Okay.
than I originally did. And so, yeah, I think sometimes, especially when it comes to finding manufacturers, finding production, that's a very, very key relationship. And ideally, if you can, that needs to be a relationship where you're dealing with someone you can grow with. Because we
Mm.
started off with really big manufacturers, and then we were a small, sort of business for them
Yeah.
to be dealing with. Well, right
Yeah.
now we are sort of on par with our manufacturers, and so we're growing together, which
Oh,
means
that's
that we just
fantastic.
respect each other a bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. So now with this pandemic, I
Mm.
think I'm a D2C business as well, and I speak to a lot of people who are, earlier stage than you, myself included. And there was this sort of craze with D2C, and then a lot of people felt like, okay, I want to grow really quickly. And the way to do that is to pursue wholesale relationships so that you can get into retail. And
Mm.
now, with a lot of big retailers basically in the US filing for bankruptcy, stores are not even open. And to the extent that they are open, customers aren't comfortable going into stores. So now it seems like, everybody's going online. I'd love to hear, considering the fact you talked about control and learning, what is your perspective or advice that you can give brands, small brands like myself, who are direct to consumer, but want to grow and see a very valid avenue for growth in wholesale? What should we do? Should we run away? Should we go? Should we be careful? Like what nuggets can you share with us?
Of course, I think I'd probably say approach with caution. When I started off, I thought the business was going to just be direct to consumer, and very quickly thereafter, Nubian Skin got approached by some big retailers like ASOS and Nordstrom, and so I just said yes. I didn't even know what it meant. I was just like, yes, this sounds great. We're going for it, and it was a really good. Um, I think one, it was amazing because those partners could see that this was clearly a need that customers had, and so that was great. But wholesale can be tricky, and I just said yes and sort of figured things out. However, it is a minefield, and you need to be really, really careful about the terms that you're signing up for, because there's long payment terms, for instance. And you need to figure out, as a business, can you afford that? Can you afford to basically be financing this thing for like 60, 90, 120 days? Because that can bankrupt some businesses. Yes, you might be getting a paycheck in, 4 months after you start discussions, or 6 months after you start discussions, but will your business cash flow actually be able to hold you out till then?
I
Um,
know, I know.
and so that's a really big thing, I think. But I do think wholesale can be great as far as helping you reach markets that you wouldn't. and also building brand awareness, because obviously, especially if you're a small brand, as we are still, but especially if we were then, you you don't have the platform of an ASOS or a Nordstrom, right? And so your brand is being exposed to so many more things. Now, one of the issues there becomes, a lot of these big brands have ways that for instance, they'll portray your brand or they'll shoot your brand. And depending on what kind of brand you are, that may or may not matter. For us, obviously, sometimes we'd see that, okay, maybe this was shot on a model that we wouldn't shoot it on, or, this is being put on a model whose skin tone it doesn't match. And so it's a bit lost in translation. So there's sometimes things like that that you have to think about as well.
Do you not have creative license? Do they have creative license once you are in the store to do what they want in terms of photography assets, or can you control that?
In general, they have a very specific style in which they need things to be shot. Sometimes you can provide them photography, which we have done, but sometimes that they don't want that, and they'll shoot it on whoever they want to shoot it on. And so it really depends on your who the retailer is. And so I think, so to get back to the question, I do think that wholesale can be a great opportunity, but it can be very, very tricky. And so you just need to make sure that the business is prepared for that. I think, as you mentioned, a lot of retailers right now are really struggling. And so sometimes terms may not be as favorable just because they can't be as favorable, because the retailers themselves are struggling. And so I just think that it's sort of a double-edged sword. You need to figure out if it's going to work for you or not. I know for us, we did it for a while. We then decided that actually we don't want to do this anymore. I decided that last year and have focused on direct-to-consumer, and now looking at opportunities to go back into wholesale, but with just a lot more knowledge about how I approach the situation.
Yeah. So, somebody said something to me last week that really I'm still thinking about. We were having a conversation about scaling. And there were a group of us on a video chat talking about scaling businesses. And let's say there were 10 of us, 9 of us were making an assumption that all of our businesses, wanted to go global, wanted to be big, and da 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 da. And one woman, pushed us. She was like, why does it have to scale? Why can't you currently enjoy a set of customers, a market positioning. Why is that not enough? Why do you have to push yourself to think about what additional products, what additional geographies, what additional store, additional. Why have we bought into this notion that the bigger is better? And my view has always been, as a business owner, my goal is for Bossy to be a global brand. When she said that, it kind of hit me. And so I'd love to hear what's your plan for Nubian Skin? Do you want to be a global brand? Do you want to extend beyond, lingerie? I see their tights now on the site. What's next for you, and how do you think about that?
Yeah, so I like to think we're already a global brand. In a
Well,
small
you
way.
are. You're in the UK. I'm talking to you from the US.
Yeah, I know, but I know what you mean. Yes, I definitely do want the brand. Well, I want the brand to be a household name, first of all, and I do want it to scale far more than it is now. As far as products go, I think lingerie and hosiery are our bread and butter. That's what we've always done. We did at one point actually start doing shoes, and we did that sort of as a limited collection. But what that taught me was it was a fun activity, but I needed to focus on really perfecting the offering that I had. And so I do think that sometimes it's really important, even as you do scale and as you do grow and you expand regions, to not lose track of what your USP is, and what your customer wants. Because sometimes, and I think as entrepreneurs, you can get excited and go, oh my goodness, this and this and this and this and this idea. But actually, remember that it's a business, it's not a passion project, it's a business. And so you need to focus on what your consumer and what your customer is asking for, not necessarily what your latest fancy is.
Yes.
So yeah, for me, I definitely want to scale. I want this business to be global. I want it to be a household name, but I want to do what we are doing incredibly well.
Okay, that's great. Let me ask you a question that you might, if you don't want to answer, just say. But um, I found that when I was starting this company, I was very clear that we are targeting working women. We're
Mm,
making efficacious beauty products that are clean, but we'll also create content for working women and services. And almost everyone that I spoke to, particularly investors, when I was open to having
mm,
investors, I don't have any, at least formal institutional investors, always zeroed in on, so this is for women of color, right? Or this is for Black women, right? I
interesting.
mean, I can't exaggerate the number of times this question was posed to me. And I can't help but think that maybe this assumption is made because I am Black, that my core target market is Black, without me saying so. So I wonder, do you have, and it could be a US bias, but I'm
Mm,
interested to know, given the name of your company and the
mm.
imagery, do you face those types of questions? Who do you consider your core customer? I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, of course. So when I started business, it was always, I think the tagline was empowering women, embracing our color. And it had always been that, we were targeting women of color because they were the people who didn't have their nudes, right? That's we were catered to. And so the majority of our customers are Black women, but we definitely have some Asian customers. We have white customers. I mean, we have customers across the board. But I think definitely we service the woman of color community, and that's evident by what we say our motto is. Um, so there hasn't really been. It's not really a question.
Yeah, yeah.
We have it as a statement. That being said, we have had questions about, well, would you expand your color range, which is something that I'm open to. It's sometimes great when people say, well, um, you know, do this before I consider stocking you, because I think you have the traditional nude in every single brand. So really, that's not. I
Yeah.
don't think that you need more of that. But yeah, sort of expanding our color range is something that I would love to do. Obviously, that takes even more capital. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, we've sort of been unapologetically catering to women of color, and that's something that I'm proud of,
Yeah.
and don't see as yeah, it's very evident. There's no questions around that.
Yeah, yeah. Have you, on this capital question, as you think about scaling or becoming a household name,
Mhm.
would you consider then third-party capital to support that journey?
Yes, and so I think I'm at the point now where I do need to start looking at that to take it to the next level, because yeah, it takes capital. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, it takes capital to do big things, right? You've done unbelievably well bootstrapping, and I
Thank you.
imagine, we can have an offline chat about that, but I imagine you won't have a problem
Thanks,
raising
Ross.
capital at this time in your business. So tell me about this MBE title. I'm so intrigued by it. Like, did you meet Meghan Markle? Like, do you have tea with the Queen? How does this work?
Well, I think this was pre Meghan Markle actually, so because it was 2017 when I got it, but I it was very, very, very unexpected. I didn't know things like that could happen. I didn't know if that was like in the cards for me or could happen for me. Um, but the story is interesting. I'd actually gone on holiday with some friends. I was in the Mykonos. Yeah, we were in Mykonos airport. I'd been having a rubbish year. Just business was hard. Everything was hard. Um,
I
and
know the feeling.
and I was away for a weekend with my husband and some friends, and I was like, okay, this is great. And my sister was visiting London. She was in my parents' flat, and she sends me a text being like, "Ooh, I think you've done something good or something really bad, because there's a letter that says like Her Majesty's Services." And I was like, ugh. I was like, I haven't done my tax return. It's probably from Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. Just like, can you just tell me what the fine is? Just like send me an email or send me a screenshot. And then she says she starts writing OMG, 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 OMG. And I was like, how big is
What?
this
I know, how much do I
fine?
owe?
I know, I was like, how big is this fine? Like, I was like, I'm only a few months out of like, this isn't like, this shouldn't be that big. And then she sends me a screenshot, or she sends me a picture of a letter, and it says, you have been nominated to receive an MBE for services to fashion. And I just burst into tears
I
because
feel like crying right now.
I just burst into tears because it'd been a slog. That year was a slog. And it sort of felt like no matter what I was doing, nothing was quite working out the way that I wanted it to. And to receive that sort of saying, the Cabinet Office and the Queen has decided that what you've done deserves something for service. And I think it was those words, for services to fashion. And I just started crying in the airport. My husband was like, what's happened? Because you can't actually tell people. So I couldn't even tell my friends who were there because it's like top secret until it's announced. And that was the beginning of it. And you have to decide if you're going to accept it. Of course, I said yes. And then it's, you get this beautiful letter signed by the Queen. You go to Buckingham Palace to receive the MBE. It's like published in the pit. It was unreal. It was mad. And you get to take 3 guests. And so I took my husband and my parents to Buckingham Palace. My parents are in their like full traditional gear.
Your Nigerian parents.
The Nigerian parents were like, we're going to Buckingham Palace. It was incredible. And you have to be nominated. To this day, I don't know who nominated me. I've asked everyone. No idea who nominated me, but I am so unbelievably grateful to them, because that was definitely a high point in a difficult moment. And it's taking my parents to Buckingham Palace is an experience I will never ever forget.
Oh my God, that is a testimony squared, man. That is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful story. Congratulations. I think it's, I think it's a beautiful story. And congratulations. I'm so proud to watch you from this little corner here in Palo Alto. I love to celebrate women. I love to celebrate women in business. I love to celebrate Nigerian women. I think it's hard, right? It's harder for us to go out and, when I read about companies who raise, $4 million to do, because they've got this interesting idea, they didn't do what you did, which is to go find a job first to pay. I have completely used 99.9% of my savings to start this company.
Absolutely.
And it's hard, and you make a lot of mistakes, and every mistake, is like a gut punch, because it is your money.
Exactly.
And you know
You're
exactly
like, I can afford a house. What am I doing?
I know. I was doing my accounts earlier in the year for the year before, and I was angry with myself. I was like, I gave this person $5,000 to do this, and I was just like, I want that money back. So I am, it's so heartwarming that that one's life can be really challenging and really hard, but then you have these types of stories like Beyonce wears your thing, or the Queen knows who you are. You take your parents to Buckingham Palace, or customers love what you do and they really engage with you on social media. I mean, for me, that's been just when a customer will tag us on something and say, we've gotten a lot of people tag us, Bossy stuff came in today, it's a great day, and put on the lipstick and send me pictures, especially like at the height of the pandemic. It's just the thing that makes everything else that's so hard.
Yes.
it makes you feel like, okay, keep going, keep going. I know it's hard, but the people behind. So what is the, I mean, we're wrapping up here, but I think what if somebody had asked you for advice, said, Ade, I want to start a company. I have, not going to get VC money and I'm not independently wealthy.
Mm.
What would you advise them to do that would shorten the 3.5 year period?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I would say start small but think big.
Okay, I love that.
So I know for me, I wish somebody had given me that advice because I sort of feel like I started big as far as production and I was thinking big, but I could have had the same impact while conserving funds. Like, I could have done it for a fraction of my spent on it,
Yeah,
which hindsight's 2020. So I would say, have lofty goals, do global shipping from the get-go, but really look at how can you maximize the resources that you have. Because I think a lot of times people think, okay, production, I've got to produce in, the Far East, like that's where I've got to go. But actually, it's like, speak to the embassies that are close to you. Look at change of commerces that are maybe a little bit closer to home, and see what the production
ah,
capabilities are of countries that are closer to you,
that's
and
a great
maybe
idea.
that's something I always tell people who are thinking about going into anything that needs to be produced or manufactured. So just really start thinking about, how can you maximize what you have when it comes to, marketing. I think a lot of times people think, okay, I need a PR agency, I need to hire someone to do this. Actually, no, what can you do yourself realistically, because you will need help, but what can you do yourself? Just so that you can really build and lay strong foundations without exhausting scarce resources, because resources
Yeah,
are scarce if you're not going to be, if you're not going to get 4 million from a venture capital fund to fund some sort of crazy idea which has no revenue or proof of
yeah,
concept.
yeah,
Um, but if you can just, as I say, think big, but really just craft it, like get it right on a small scale, and
yeah.
then build that out.
Yeah, yeah. Would you say, I mean, my experience has been, I started very small, we're still small, but we have iterated multiple times.
Mm.
So I started with I started in one way and then I've kind of, as I've gone along and sales,
Yes.
improved the packaging, I improved the
Mm.
formulation, like I just kept kind of getting better and better and better. At least that's what customers have been telling us. But
Yeah.
we've, changed a lot over the 18 months of launching. And so I think that's a different approach to starting small, but thinking big.
Yeah.
My
Exactly.
final my final question I want to talk to you. So you are global. You do ship globally, right?
Yes.
How do you do that? Because global shipping costs. How do you? Can you talk to us about how you ship in a way that is cost effective for the customer,
Mm.
as well as for yourself?
Yeah, I think firstly, just know that you will never please everybody, because there will be people who want to have free shipping, and as a small business, quite frankly, unless you've got a super, super high margin product, that is not possible. So there will always be people who will complain about shipping costs. Put them to one side. You're not going to please everyone. And when we started off, we had a fulfillment agency who was doing all our picking and packing, and we had their rates, and their rates were not amazing. So
Yeah.
we were subsidizing shipping. So I think at that point we were charging like £15 to ship to the US or internationally, but it was actually costing us more than that. And then when we bought warehousing and fulfillment in-house, so we started doing it ourselves. I think in the UK, we're just using the post office, and we found, I think we're sending everything via the post office actually. Um, and so we're working with, the rates that the post office had. Now, and you live and you learn. Now we work with a fulfillment company who has really, really good e-com rates as far as I'm
Okay.
concerned. Obviously, the pandemic has changed that a bit, but
Yeah.
some of it's just really shopping around. There's lots of different resources, whether that's using a fulfillment warehouse, whether using something like Shopbob or Shipbob, I think is what they're called. There's lots of different things you can use, and also aggregators who you can ship with, who have better rates because they basically work with a bunch of small businesses, and so they have bigger volumes, and so they've negotiated better rates with like DHL or FedEx. So it's just about searching for that.
Yeah.
And that can help you bring your costs down, and then it's a call whether you want to charge everything to the customer or whether you want, hi Christina, or whether you want to subsidize a little bit yourself if your margin can support that until you can scale enough so that your cost of shipping goes down.
Goes down. Okay. And what percentage, well, you don't have to give me the specifics, but do you have a big customer base outside of the outside of the UK?
Yes, we do. We definitely have. We have a lot of international customers, and actually, I'd say we sell more internationally than we do locally.
Oh, wow. Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. What's the last bit of advice you would give to somebody who's watching this video either now or later? What would you say to them? A word of encouragement.
Yeah, I think at least it's been the experience for me. Something good is always around the corner. I think sometimes, especially as if you're a small business and you're a solo founder, or even if you're a co-founder, but if you're a solo founder working in a small business, it can feel like a struggle. And as you said, every time something doesn't work out, it literally feels like somebody's punched you in the face or punched you in the stomach. Like it's painful.
And it's daily, right? It's like it could literally be every day.
It is relentless. But I do honestly believe that when you're passionate about your product and when you've got a good product and you're putting your all in, there is always, always something good that's coming right around the corner. Like even when you're at your lowest, something positive will happen, whether that's an amazing email from a customer, maybe it's like that break that you've been desperate for will show up. And so just keep the faith, just keep putting one foot in front of the other, because if you had the dream and you decided to go for it, have faith in that.
Yeah, don't give up. I needed that. That was for me. It's been a pretty icky day. So thank you for that message, because it is a slog. It's hard, but when those little things happen, you're reminded again of the joy of doing the business, of the joy of creating the products, creating these experiences, and the joy that it brings to other people. And so it sometimes gets mired in the process. Like right now, I do my own warehousing and fulfillment.
Been there.
It's painful. I mean, look at my nails. They're like, I don't paint them anymore because packaging, putting the tape, daily trips to the post office. My kids come with me. I mean, it's a real family business at this point.
But I think one of the things to remember is that you never know who's watching and who's inspired by you. Because there's so many times, I think, as small business owners, we think, oh my goodness, why am I doing this? This is just, but there's countless women who look at what you're doing and they're inspired by that. And I think it gives them the sort of push that they need to go, you know what, if she can do it, then I can do it. Yeah. And I think so often as small business owners, as female founders, we don't realize what an inspiration we are to other women or to people who are in the same boat as us, because they're just like, okay, you know, I can keep going. So and so still doing it, like I can do it as well. Yeah, that's also important to say. I mean, I tried to, in the middle of the pandemic when our supply chain was broken, I was like, I had run out of product to sell, and I had no idea when I would ever have product again to sell. In fact, I was like, do I still have a business if I have no products to sell? What's the definition? How does that work? I just went on IG Live and I told my customers, guys, like, I don't know if anybody even wants to buy lipstick right now. I think people are worried about getting sick or dying, and I'm worried about it as well. I've got 3 kids, and I don't want us to fall sick, and I don't want to fall sick. And
I've got no product to sell. So how about this? Why don't we just talk? Like, let's talk about
Yeah.
what's on your mind. Let's talk about, or have you lost your job? How do you think about, are you filing for unemployment? Um, and so we started to also really do even my newsletters. I stopped having somebody else write the newsletters. I started writing them myself and just talking about, today this was a rough week dealing with anxiety issues. How about you? And then people would just write me directly and say, oh, I'm so happy you said that. I'm on medication now. I'm having anxiety
Mm.
issues. So I do agree that one of the blessings of being this small is that we can really bring our full selves to the work that we do. And you're right. I mean, a number of people did say to me that they're so happy that I was open about the challenges that I'm facing right now. Either they have the same problem or they've got kids or, whatever. But it's just good to know that other people are going through struggles when, you post a picture of you smiling in lipstick.
Of
That's not
course.
just the way. That's not the whole story, guys. So, yeah. Well, thank you so much, Ade. It was
Thank
really,
you for
really,
having
really
me.
a
It was
pleasure
lovely.
to have you. I really appreciate it. Well done. You are inspiring to me, and I'm sure many other women out there. And I wish you every success as
Thank you,
you,
and you too.
take over
Absolutely.
the world. Global lingerie. Every success.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take
Thanks for
care.
having me. Bye.
Bye. Whew. I got a couple more minutes. That was a really good chat. Happy that she could join us. If you don't know Nubian Skin, really please check it out. They've got a really awesome IG page, great website, and beautiful products. And I just think that she's so amazing and just elegant in her delivery. And I admire her from afar. And I'm really happy that she agreed to chat with us.